the Online Entrepreneur Motivation Series, discussing ideas, strategies, and mindsets to help online entrepreneurs become more successful. In today's presentation, we're going to talk about business development and why it's important to develop your business, and more specifically, the things you need to be focusing on in order to successfully build your business. Now, the first thing you need to realize is when it comes to success in online business, or really any business for that matter, there are just a few things that you need to do well. And in some cases, you could even get away with just doing one thing really well. And this is a problem for a lot of new entrepreneurs, or a lot of people in general who want to break into business, and they believe that they have to be all things to all people. When you start breaking it down, you start looking at the most successful entrepreneurs, the most successful companies. They were built upon the idea of specialization and the idea of becoming really, really good at providing one thing really, really well. And so you have to begin to ask yourself, as an online entrepreneur, what is it that makes me unique? What are the skills and practices that I bring to the table that people are going to pay me for? What do I do better than most other people? And what's a craft or what's a skill that I can hone and get even better at so I can get paid even more as I go along? And it's very important that you have this discussion with yourself early and often, because it's very easy as business grows and as things get busier and as your schedule becomes more and more hectic for you to divert your attention in a million different directions. So the thing here is to remind you, focus on doing a few things well, or even just one thing well. Maybe you're a great presenter or speaker. Maybe you're great at programming. Maybe you have a knack for doing negotiations and putting teams together, or brokering deals between two different companies. It's really up to you to figure out what that special skill is that you bring to the table, and then just work on doing it really, really well and improving it all the time. Now that brings us to our second point here, which is how do you get even better at what you're already good at? We kind of already talked about this. When you focus on the things that you do naturally well, the things that you want to be paid for in your business, now you're creating the level of specialization that people want to pay you for, and then you begin to ask this question, how do I get even better at what I'm already good at? What you're really saying when you ask this question is, how do I increase my capacity to get paid even more for this skill that I'm already naturally good at and that I'm already broadcasting myself as an expert in, and people are already coming to me for help. And maybe you're already getting paid good money to do whatever it is. How do you take it even further? How do you expand that skill and become even better at it? And then in turn, increasing the amount of money, the amount of revenue that you can generate through this skill. And it may seem counterintuitive that as you go deeper into one thing, you might think there'll be less and less for me to do here, but actually it's the opposite. The more you focus on one particular skill, the more opportunity you see to grow and expand within inside of that skill. So again, going back to my example of presenting and speaking, once you get really, really good at one form of speaking, maybe you're a platform speaker and you're hired to speak at conferences, well, now you've perfected the art of speaking. You know how to connect with your audience. You know that you can keep people's attention and maybe even motivate them to action. Now you have all kinds of opportunities to take this to the webinar world or the online presentation world, or to become a presentation coach and teach other presenters how to do what you do. You get the idea. As you get better at what you're already good at, you'll increase your capacity to make more money. Here's another really important thing about business development, and it's the ability for you to separate business and emotion. And this is where a lot of entrepreneurs, especially newbie entrepreneurs, fall flat, because money gets involved and a lot of emotion can get involved when money gets involved into the equation. And it's very important for you to look at every situation. Maybe you're dealing with a customer who's just treating you disrespectfully, or maybe you're dealing with a partner or a former partner, or maybe you're working with outsourcers to provide you with some content or to provide you with some kind of material for your business. And they become an abrasive personality, or they're a kind of personality that you just don't get along with well naturally. It's very easy to become wrapped up emotionally, whether you feel like you've been ripped off for something you paid for, or whether you think you've been slighted by them in a respect fashion. You don't feel like they're respecting you. Base everything on making a decision that's effective for the business. Your job is to make sure your business stays alive. And separating your emotion from the business is very easy to do when you look at your business in this way. So if it comes time to let somebody go because they're not a good fit, you can strictly focus on, this is a business decision, and my business is going to die if I don't make this decision. It's very easy to remove your emotion from it when you separate yourself from the business. Your job is to keep the business alive, and the more you let emotions come into the equation, the less effective you will be at making those often difficult decisions that will keep your business afloat. Here's another thing. The best business people are lifelong students. If you look at any successful entrepreneur, even the most celebrated people in the world right now that you might be reading biographies about, take a look at their daily regimen, their daily routine, and they are always learning. They're always studying. They're always pushing themselves. Often the most successful people you can read about are the most driven. These are the people getting up at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning and working all hours of the day. And I'm not suggesting that you have to work nonstop to be successful, but they're addicted to the growth. They're addicted to becoming students of their craft and to becoming better at what they already do well. And they never ever allow themselves to kind of rest on their laurels or to look at things they've done in the past and say, I've already achieved X level, my maximum level of success. I'm done now. They're always looking to expand. They're students, and when they feel like they've mastered something, they go into another area that can already expand what they're doing well, and they become a brand new student in that area. And they enjoy the process of learning. They enjoy the process of breaking down something they don't know how to do yet, going through the initial awkward phases of kind of figuring out how this whole thing works, building up proficiency, and then they thrive on the idea of mastering something new that they haven't been able to do before. And you need to be able to think that way in all areas of your business. So if there's something you've mastered and it's time to move on, what is another area of your business that you can now master that will make you more profitable? Next, you need to be able to find repeatable processes and systems. It's very easy to think of one project that you want to launch, and that makes you some money, and then you put it away and go on to something else. And each and every time, you're inventing the process. You're starting from scratch. You need to begin to ask yourself, how can I leverage the actions I'm taking, the things I'm doing in each project, each revenue generating project? And how can I template these things? How can I write a system or a checklist so that I can repeat a lot of the things that created success in the first place? So as an example, let's say you're an author or you create a product of some sort and people are buying your work and you get questions. And maybe the questions come in and a lot of them are the same type of question. Maybe they fall into 3 different categories, but for the most part, there are 3 categories of questions. And you can anticipate that these same questions are going to come again in the future. Well, now you can create templated answers anticipating when these questions are going to be asked again in the future. And instead of having you or your support team or whoever's responsible for answering these questions type out those answers again, you can have templates created, or even as an example, create an FAQ section. And now you've got something that's already done for you. It's already completely systemized. So when this action takes place, your company is set up to automatically handle that action and move on. And it doesn't interrupt what you're currently doing, the growth that you're currently working on. And the more you do this, the more you find processes and systemize things that you're already doing, the greater the asset base you build in your business and the more money you're going to be able to make because you're handling more things. The more you can handle, the more money you can make. So always be on the lookout for things that you're doing that are of a repetitive nature that you can systemize or put into some template of some sort. Finally, building your network. When it comes to business development, it's impossible to develop your business and to become successful as an entrepreneur if you're not expanding your network. But the problem is a lot of people do it the wrong way. They go into these online social networks like LinkedIn and they just start asking for people to help them. Or they go to a live event and they talk all about themselves. The key to building your network is to reach out and connect with other people. And the best way to do that is to meet people for the sake of meeting them and take interest in who they are in their lives. Not just what they do for work, but in their personal lives, where they live, how many kids they have, where they grew up, some of the things they do outside of business. Some of the projects they may be working on that have nothing to do with making money. You can connect with people at all different kinds of levels. I've talked to a number of different entrepreneurs. Some of their best partners, some of the best people in their network are people they connected with outside of business. Maybe they played on the same sports team together, or maybe they were interested in the same kind of hobby. And meeting at that level, they had a common connection, a common bond. And then it just so happened that the business connections flowed naturally out of that. When you go into a networking event or to a networking situation with the goal and the determination that I just got to build my network and I have to find as many people who can help me make more money as possible, you're doing it the wrong way, and you're actually going to repel people. They're not going to be interested in talking to you because they'll see that you're only in this for the business side of it. You're only in it to make contacts, to maybe grow your prospect list, and there's nothing they're really going to gain from it intellectually or even in a relationship capacity. So always think of meeting people for the sake of meeting them, and then just let it flow naturally from there. You'll be amazed at the amount of connections you'll make, even with just one good relationship. So treat those relationships really well, and build your network tactfully, focusing on the person first. If you do that well, and you do everything that we've talked about in this presentation, then your business development is on the right path for success. So let's quickly talk about some business development exercises that you can put into play right now. First, list 3 money-making skills that bring in money on a regular basis and brainstorm how you can strengthen them. I mean, you're already doing well with these. They're already making you money. They're bringing revenue into your business. How can you take that further? What can you do to enhance the skill? What can you do to find more customers who will pay for that skill? Think of all the different ways that you can transform this into even more opportunity for your business. Then list 3 money-draining tasks. These are tasks that actually cost your business, things that you're doing on a regular basis that are preventing you from spending time on those other 3 that are making you the money, and brainstorm ways that you can remove them, either through systemizing, through delegating, through outsourcing, hiring, removing them altogether in some cases, but sit down and think of them at a detailed level so that you can remove them. Doing these 2 tasks will be hugely transformational to your business development. The Online Entrepreneur Motivation Series, discussing ideas, strategies, and mindsets to help online entrepreneurs become more successful. And today's presentation is about one of the most important topics any of us can learn, and that is self-confidence. Not just self-confidence when it comes to operating your business, but self-confidence in general in your life. If you can become more confident, you can have a happier life. And I think you already know this at a gut level. But have you ever actually sat down and asked yourself what confidence actually means? You see a lot of people looking at a certain confident person and maybe even admiring them from afar, saying, wow, look at his or her confidence. But they never actually sit down and think, what does confidence mean? Well, let's talk about it. Confidence is really, it's a state of mind. It's the way you see the world, and your perceptions will actually shape how you feel about the world. But it's not just a state of mind, it's also a physical state. It's something we can describe physically, a sensation that we feel in our body. And the thing is, confidence is absolutely required if you want to come up with the right ideas to succeed, if you want to make intelligent plans for success in your life and in your business, and most importantly, if you want to be able to follow through on the action that is required to succeed. I mean, think about it. If you approach a problem, let's say you're just starting a business right now, or hey, maybe you've already been in business for a few years and something happens. There's some kind of problem that you need to deal with, and you approach that problem from a position of lack of confidence or fear. Are you going to have access to the same ideas, or are you going to come up with approaches that will be the same as if you were feeling very confident or very powerful or fearless about the situation? And of course, you know the answer is no. If you're feeling unconfident, if you're feeling weary or fearful of the situation, of the problem, and there's even an ounce of doubt in your mind that you're going to be able to handle this, you will simply not have access to ideas or trains of thought that will help you get out of this problem as effectively as if you were to approach the problem with forced confidence, with a high degree of self-reliance and fearlessness. So the thing is, we need to work on our ability to get into a confident state of mind, but also into a confident physical state so that we literally feel like we can take on any problem that comes in our way. Now, if we can do that, if we can get our mindset to a place where we suddenly begin to feel like, hey, you know what? I can handle this. I can think rationally about this problem and think back to other times in my life where I was also faced with some big stuff in the past. And you know what? I got through it. So you can start building that up. And when you start developing a higher level of confidence and you're looking at a problem, now you can go to part B there and start making intelligent plans for success. Because you're starting to feel better about the problem, your plans will start to look better. And then as the plans look better, you start looking at the actions required to make that plan come to fruition, and you're able to actually follow through on the action because you're feeling better about yourself and your ability to take on whatever this problem may be. And sometimes, let's face it, sometimes there are going to be huge problems that we have to deal with in business. And a lot of the times, these problems may force us to confront somebody, to get into a fearful situation or something that makes us feel bad or something where we just want to run away scared. But because we force ourselves to go through that, we can dedicate new levels of confidence and we can actually acquire confidence that we can build moving forward. So here's the thing you must remember and must always carry with you and know at a gut level is you can build confidence. And here's the problem is there are some myths, really pervasive myths that hurt a lot of people. And one of the myths is that they look at other people who are more confident than them, and they'll say things like, or even just think to themselves, wow, that person is so lucky. Look how confident they are. Because they believe that this other myth is true, that confidence comes naturally. And that may be true to a degree, but it's certainly not entirely true. Confidence can be developed, and until you accept that, until you realize that, you'll never be able to actually develop your own confidence. And if you're honest with yourself right now and you look at areas in your life that are lacking, you can very likely tie that back to a lack of confidence in some area of your life, in some mindset that you're constantly bringing up where you have a lack of confidence. So here's the thing. You have confidence. Even if you're the type of person where you think you're lacking, you have confidence. It just may not be confidence where you want it, right? Think about things that you're already proficient at. Walking, running, driving. I just put those examples up here on the slide as simple examples. But there was a time in your life where you were not good at those things, assuming you do those things. And assuming you do these things, think back to when you were younger and you couldn't do them proficiently. You were not confident. And luckily for us at the time when we were learning things like walking, we were a little bit more fearless back then and we just kept doing it till we got proficient at it. But driving is a little bit better of an example because we do that when we're a little bit older. We start off driving, especially if you want to learn manual transmission or versus automatic, you can have a very, very low level of confidence because there's so much going on. But as you practice it, as you develop proficiency for this, your confidence for that thing grows. And so just looking at that process, the way we as humans interact with new things in our lives and the way we develop our proficiency, the proficiency leads to confidence. So that's all you need to realize here is your lack of confidence is for just one reason. You have not worked on developing your confidence in that area. So maybe you lack confidence in confronting people that are giving you a problem. Maybe you lack confidence in selling. You know you're good at what you do. The service you provide or the products you create are very valuable. You know that you can help your customers, but when it comes time to close the deal, you freeze because you lack the confidence. Now you can remind yourself that I just have not developed my confidence in selling. It doesn't mean I will never be a confident salesperson. It just means I have not developed it yet. And that is sometimes all you need to realize to begin your journey towards a higher level of confidence in whatever area you're currently deficient at. So let's look at the confidence formula. First of all, you need to do a reality check. And you have to focus on different areas of your life right now where you may be lacking in confidence. And ask the truthful question, where are you? So say this to yourself, where am I confidence-wise? And where do I lack it? So if in selling, maybe you're decent at maybe your confidence is decent when it comes to writing down the reasons why your products are good. But when it comes to having a conversation with somebody about why your products are good and why they should buy it, that's where your confidence lacks. Make sure you understand at a detailed level the exact implications of your confidence and exactly where it's at. And then, in the areas where you are confident, so let's say you can do a pretty good job of writing out all the features and benefits and all the reasons why your product is good. You can write that down with no problem. Well, inflate that. Really build it up in your mind and kind of congratulate yourself for being that confident, for having the awareness that you are that good, and realize that I do have confidence when it comes to writing down the features and benefits of my service. From there, you need to find the implications of the lack of confidence in detail. So yes, I'm good at writing it, but I'm not good at speaking these features and benefits. I'm not good at discussing why somebody should buy this. I can't close a deal in person and list all of the implications. Well, what is happening as a result of you not being able to do this? Well, let's say most of your deals come in through face-to-face selling. Well, the implications of that are you're not making very much money. You're not able to sell as much of what you should be selling in order to be successful in business. Maybe it's causing you to do less work. Maybe it's causing you to shy away from finding new prospects because you dread the idea of actually finding somebody who's interested in buying what from you. And so list out each and every implication of you not being confident in that particular area of your life. Next, you need to go and find somebody who is really, really good at what you want to go to be good at. And in that example, there are no shortage of people in this world who are very good and confident at selling face-to-face. There are people who can sell from a stage or a platform. There are people who can go into a boardroom full of executives and close the place down and get them to buy everything in their arsenal. There are amazing salespeople out there, and you need to develop relationships or at least study people who are already good at that so you can start seeing what it is that gives them confidence and what they do to be so good at that. And then create a plan. So my confidence is lacking. I want to get to a higher level of confidence. What is my plan to begin building proficiency so that I can become more confident? More confident tomorrow, even more confident next week, even more confident next month. And then by a year from now, I may have totally obliterated all of my lack of confidence in this area, and I may be the best face-to-face salesperson you have ever seen. But it all comes down to this confidence formula, doing a reality check of where you're at, inflating the confidence you already have to prove to yourself that you have it, finding the implications of not developing the confidence so you can get mad at yourself, then finding role models who already do a good job at it so you can study them and create a plan to be more like them in your own unique way. So now let's talk about a couple of exercises you can work on now that will help you to develop your confidence now and over time. First, log your victories. This is incredibly powerful. I want you to begin today and every day moving forward to build an evolving list of successes and wins and victories, whatever you want to call it, that you can review on an ongoing basis. This is done really well with something like Evernote, or you can even do it in a notepad with pen and paper. The key is that you do it. And every time something happens, whether it's something really, really small, like a small testimonial email that you receive from a customer, or it could be a huge, like a reward you receive, log that victory, write about it, describe it in as much detail as possible so that you can go back and when your confidence is low in the future, you can read this growing log and build that confidence back up in an instant. Then, go and do a reality check. And what I mean is do a full inventory on where you are and where you are not confident as it stands today. And be completely honest with yourself. You'll see areas where you have an abundance of confidence and you feel really great about yourself, but you'll also see the opposite, areas where you need to work on your confidence, you need to develop it and improve it. But based on everything we've talked about here today, you can start taking action on that and moving them from one column over to the other. But until you log it all, until you have a full inventory, you can't really do this effectively. So do your reality check as well as your logging of victories, and you'll be well on your way to be a much more confident person. The Online Entrepreneur Motivation Series, discussing ideas, strategies, and mindsets to help entrepreneurs become more successful online. Now, today's presentation is all about constant improvement, and I believe that this is an area that a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners take for granted, or in some cases, don't even think about at all. And so I want to shine some light on this today and inspire you to think about it, not right now only, but all of the time. And look how you can bring the idea and the philosophy of constant improvement into your world so that you can be more successful in your business. And it all starts with this. Real happiness comes from mastery. And I want you to think about that idea for a minute. Think about some of the times in your life where you felt the most alive, and specifically in business, the times that were the most exciting for you. Yes, it's great when a big paycheck comes in, when a lot of money comes in, but some of the most invigorating times, especially when you take a poll of entrepreneurs, the most invigorating, enlightening, exciting times come from those moments where they have truly conquered something, they truly mastered something. For a professional speaker, it might be the first time they delivered a speech and got a standing ovation. For an author, it might be getting that first book published and making your first sale. It could be anything, but the idea of starting off small, starting off with a limited skill set, developing your skills over time, and eventually becoming extremely proficient at something is one of the most rewarding experiences you can ever have in your life. And the really cool part about this is as you develop competency for something and as you become a master at it, that process never ends. You can never completely master something. It's a very, very interesting, paradoxical thing, really, when you think about it. You can always get better at whatever it is that you're doing. And that's why you see some of the best people in the world at their craft continue to work on it, continue to develop and hone their skills, and they're almost addicted to this growth process that they get into. So realize that real happiness is going to come from your mastery more than it is going to come from any other format of business. So what are you mastering? That's the question you want to ask yourself. But I also want to get you thinking about the idea of patience. And patience is, as this particular slide says, a lost art form. There are so few people who are willing to go through the almost painful experience of spending the hours, putting in the time required to become good at something, to constantly improve something, to master something. It's a painful thing to do. Let's face it. When you first start something, I don't care if you're learning how to play the guitar or you have no tech experience and you want to learn how to develop websites, all of these things have this massive list of skill that you must develop, and the initial phases are painful. And a huge degree of patience is required, and that patience is often what's lacking in most people, and that's the thing that causes people to abandon the art of mastery altogether. Realizing that patience is one of your biggest virtues. It's one of the most important things you have to embrace and hone into your life. And it doesn't mean you're not going to get frustrated. It just means you're going to understand the process that patience is required, that I am going to feel frustration, that I may even actually feel pain or anxiety because I have to face this thing that I'm not good at yet and go through that really awkward phase to a point where I finally start to catch it. And when you realize that, when you realize that patience is a lost art form and that few people are willing to do it, it makes it easier for you to persist through those difficult times because you remind yourself of this fact that so few other people are going to do it. And by the time I get through it, it's going to be so worth it because I've passed the test that 99 out of 100 people will not pass. What is your level of patience right now? Again, it doesn't mean you're not going to experience frustration or yell a bunch of curse words at the wall, whatever it is. You're going to do that, but you're also going to go through that process remembering that if you persist, and more importantly, if you're patient enough to get through that to a point where you finally make that breakthrough, that's when things start beginning to turn around for you, and you're committed to the philosophy of constant improvement. Now, if you think back to our first presentation about business development, where we talked about honing in on one skill, or a small skill set of things that you do naturally well, that people pay you for your expertise for. If you've done that correctly, and now you come to this section where we start talking about constant improvement, what you see on the slide right now is what's happening in your life, and it doesn't get any better than this. You are getting paid to get good at your passions. Constant improvement will just come naturally to you because there's people out there paying you to do this thing, and here you are going through the mastery phases, going through that stage or that phase of patience and persistence to just get better at something that you already want to be doing anyways. This is where things become really sweet. You become a person who makes a lot of money, and you're really, really happy in making that money. If you don't do the first part, if you don't hone in on the things that you want to do and want to master, then it's impossible to get to this phase, which is getting paid to get good at your passions. And I'm sure you would agree that nothing really trumps this. If you can get paid to get good at something you already want to do, that's pretty awesome. Finally, and this ties in nicely, make it a game. Make it a game or a challenge to improve every single day. Try to beat your record. I know that for me personally, when I really commit to my fitness and I want to go, increase my cardiovascular strength, and when I go on runs, when I time my runs, if I'm doing a certain length of run and I time it, I know that I want to beat my time, even if it's by 1 second. I'm driven and motivated and inspired to just beat it, beat that time that I did the day before. Or if there's a certain, product that I sold and it sold X amount of dollars, I want to see if I can do X times 2 or even X plus 1 if I have to. Just beat it by a little bit. The fact that you can see the results and you can see the increase is huge motivational fuel to do it again and to persist through and to actually get you through that patience phase that you know you're going to need. So if you turn it into a game where you keep score and you track things and you see that you're increasing and improving every day, it makes it that much easier. See it as a game, not as a chore, and you're going to love it. And the idea of self-improvement, constant improvement, is going to come naturally to you. Now I've got a couple of exercises you can do right now to begin working on and honing your ability to have constant improvement and to focus on doing that on an ongoing basis. So first, you need to book a time where you're going to dedicate some focused attention to perfecting and mastering your craft on a daily basis. So some people like to get up an hour early and dedicate that first hour of their day to this art, this specific form of improving themselves, of developing their craft, developing their mastery around whatever topic it is that's important to them. It could be at the end of the day. It could be on your lunch break, or it might be at random times throughout your week. The key is that you do this and you do it every single day. And I can almost guarantee you that as you start doing it, you'll start dedicating more and more time to this on a daily and monthly and even yearly basis. Next, you want to create a log. And this can be a journal that you write in, or a notebook that you have online or your computer or even on your phone, where you can start tracking the progress of your improvement. You can describe how your skill is developing, how you feel about it, what you've been able to do today versus where you were last week, and where you're going in the future. This brings an awareness of how you've been improving, and it fuels that mode that you get into when you want to improve even further. It makes this constant improvement method, this methodology, a lot easier for you to embrace when you can visually see track points and case studies along the way of how you have been improving your craft. But you can't do that unless you log it. So begin logging it today, and constant improvement will be part of your life moving forward. The Online Entrepreneur Motivation Series, discussing ideas, strategies, and mindsets to help online entrepreneurs become more successful. And today we're going to be discussing a huge topic, a topic that not a lot of people ever consider, even though there are plenty of entrepreneurs out there, but only a few of them really think about this, and that is your driving force, why you're in business, the reason why you do what you do. And here's the thing. There has to be meaning in why you run your business and why you are an entrepreneur. You have to have a purpose for what you do. Having a purpose and identifying your meaning is an absolute must if you really want to succeed. If you want to be able to persist through all of the problems, the relentless issues that you're going to be dealing with as an entrepreneur, something else has to be driving you. And it can't be just about the money. We all need money. Okay, I know that you need money. You know that I need money, and we'd be lying to ourselves if we thought money wasn't important. It's important. We can't have anything in our lives without it. However, money cannot be the only motivation. We need to ask ourselves, what makes you come alive? What makes you as an individual have drive, have passion, have purpose behind your actions, so that you're not just kind of going through the motions on a day-to-day basis, building a big checklist of to-dos for your day and methodically clicking them off one by one without any passion or any excitement for what you do. You need to know what makes you come alive. It makes you become passionate and feel what you're doing and feel good about what you're doing beyond the money. And so for each and every person, it's going to be different. And for each and every person, there are probably a variety of things that cause them to have meaning, or that develop their why, or the reason why they're in business to begin with. And so we're just going to go through a few examples here. And often these will apply to many, many people, although it's not limited to this list. But let's talk about them. First, to be the best in the world at what you do. And not just say that, but actually think about this for a minute. How cool would that be to know that whatever vocation you've chosen, whatever business you've decided to go into, how awesome would it be to know that you are among the best in the world at what you do? Top 1%. And I'm talking any vocation you can think of. There are hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people trying to do it, and you're one of the top 1%. the reward that you get from that, from knowing that you are the best at what you do, is sometimes all people need to drive them forward. But how about this one? To lead and inspire an audience. Some people get so much meaning knowing that others are following them and looking to them for advice and looking to them for power and for confidence in their lives. Maybe you thrive on knowing that others are looking to you as a source of power in their lives. And by operating your business and operating yourself in certain ways, you can actually be that leader and that inspiration for those people. Here's another huge one: to pave a new way for your children. A lot of entrepreneurs right now are doing this exact thing. A lot of us were raised in an environment where we were taught to go to school for one particular area and then to get a job and then to focus on building your career, typical career path in that job, waiting to the time till you retire. And it doesn't matter if you like it or you don't like it, this is what you're supposed to do. And this is what we've been taught to do. And we all know that that's no way to live your life, especially if you're miserable. And by becoming an entrepreneur, you're paving an entirely new way for your children. You're creating a new way of looking at life, a more empowering way of looking at life. And your children are having something modeled for them that was never modeled for you. And you're literally breaking a pattern. For some people, that's all they focus on. And their entire business fuel, their fuel to succeed in business comes from this need to change their ways so that their children can have a new outlook on life. Or how about becoming totally self-reliant and independent? When you don't need a boss and an employer to give you money so that you can show up somewhere and get a certified payment in your bank account, but on the opposite end, you embrace the uncertainty and you're okay with the fact that you don't know if you're going to get paid until you deliver. But you're okay with that because it develops you as a person. And now you're on the hook for becoming totally self-reliant. And now anything can happen in the world around you. And you develop the confidence over time as a business owner to know that it doesn't matter what happens, I'm self-reliant, I'm independent, I'm capable of handling it myself. I don't need anybody to help me out. That is a huge driving force for a lot of people. This is another one, and it may be a little bit too much for you. It may be great for you, but how about to prove something to yourself, or even better, to prove to someone else? I've talked and I've heard of business people whose entire motivation was to prove someone wrong because they were doubted in some way or slighted by someone else, and they became indignant and angry and mad that that person would doubt them. And that fueled them way past all of these other entrepreneurs competing with them, and they became the best at what they did just because they had to prove someone wrong. They were angry that somebody doubted them. Has somebody slighted you or doubted you? Or maybe your own mind has doubted you and your capabilities to do something with your life. And you need to prove to yourself or to that other person that you are capable of doing this. That can be your driver, your motivation. How about solving a huge problem in the world or an injustice that you're seeing? Most people just complain that the government's not solving these problems. Maybe you're the kind of person that says, well, nobody's solving this problem, so I'm going to step up and solve it. And by creating this business, by being an entrepreneur, and by raising capital and becoming worth more and more money, I can now be in a position to have enough power to solve this problem. Rather than waiting for someone else to solve it, I'm going to solve it. And in order for me to solve it, I have to be successful in business. Maybe that's your driving force. Maybe that's your why. Or how about this last one? To face the fears that have held you back. A lot of people stay in a job that they hate because they're just too fearful to even think about what it might be like to have to go at it alone. And maybe you're just so sick and tired of all the negative implications that happen when you live from a position of fear that it's time to stamp on those fears and solve them once and for all. And you overcoming your fear is what drives you to success as an entrepreneur. These are just some typical examples, and I'm sure at least one or two of these are true for you, but it's really, really important that you get in touch with them. So let's talk about a couple of exercises for developing your driving force. First, brainstorm issues that bother you. Anything in this world, anything about the way you've been living your life, or like we talked about earlier, things that you see happening in the world around you, anything that really bothers you, list them down and then rank them. You might be bothered by how timid and nervous and shy you are around other people that are more aggressive, and you want to solve that problem. Or you may be bothered by some kind of injustice like we talked about earlier that's happening in the world. Brainstorm, think about all the things that bother you and rank them so that you know what charges you from the highest to the lowest level. And then from there, looking at all these different things that bother you and that you want to solve, create your driving force, your quote unquote why statement, so that as you build your business and as you face these mountains of to-dos and these new things that you have to develop and these difficult situations you're going to be facing, that you can always come back to this reason why. Why are you doing this in the first place? Why did you create this business? Why are you an entrepreneur? And if you get intimately familiar with your driving force or your quote why, then as you face these difficult situations, they become easier and easier and your proficiency grows higher and you become better at doing what it is that you want to be doing because of this statement. Create your why statement right now, brainstorm all of these things, and then as you move forward, your business will just get easier and easier for you to evolve and grow. The Online Entrepreneur Motivation Series, discussing ideas, strategies, and mindsets to help online entrepreneurs become more successful. And you cannot have any degree of success as an entrepreneur unless you are a high energy person, unless you manage your energy. And we're going to be discussing that in this presentation. And we're going to start off by making you realize that your energy levels will ultimately determine your success in business. And take a minute just to think about this for a second. Think about any successful entrepreneur that you've either studied from afar or even met in person and looked at what they live like, how they operate. Are these people what you consider low energy and unproductive people? Probably not. These are people that are driven, they're passionate, they have a high level of energy on an ongoing basis. And their success is caused by, one of the root causes of their success is because they have a high level of energy. And that high level of energy connects them to better ideas, to more inspiring thoughts that make them take more action, that gives them even more energy. It becomes this positive cycle. And so knowing that your energy levels will determine your success, you need to become aware of this, but you need to make it your mission to become a high energy person on an ongoing basis. And in order to do that, you need to understand how energy works. And the basic premise that you need to realize is that energy flows in rhythms. So even the people that you look at right now and you might think, wow, they've got a lot of energy and I don't. Energy flows in rhythms. Those people, while they may appear to be high energy, they also experience lows. They're not always at a level 10. They do hit their levels 0s and 1s, and there's times where they feel like passing out too. They've just become better at managing it. But understanding that energy flows in rhythms and what to do about it is very important. When to take a break, how long you should focus, and how long you should be detaching from it. There is a book by Tony Schwartz called The Power of Full Engagement that actually dives deep into this idea of maximizing your energy by having intense periods of focused concentration, but then deliberately taking breaks to allow yourself time to recover. And this is all about rhythms of energy, how your energy flows, and you need to become intimately aware of your energy patterns. And in order to do that, you have to become conscious of your energy levels. What is your energy like on a daily basis? Do you have your most energy in the morning and then it kind of dwindles as your day goes along? Do you start off really slow and then build up momentum only to have it leave later on and come back at the night in the evenings? These flows are partly particular to you and to your schedule, but they're also just sort of a rhythm that you've been living with right now. And just becoming conscious of what your energy has been like in your life up to this point is very important. But you also need to realize that you can change it. And you can deliberately create new energy patterns in your life. And it all starts, honestly, with changing your beliefs about low energy. And I've seen this, I'm sure you've seen this in your life as well. It happens with kids all the time, where, the kid can be sitting there on the couch and bored out of their mind, and they say they just feel like sleeping. They have nothing, no energy or desire to do anything at all, especially if you ask them to do a chore, right? But then you subtly introduce the idea of doing something fun, like going to an amusement park or a water park or going out to get a treat. These kids are suddenly jolted to life. They have this explosion of energy, and they've gone from a level 1 or 2 up to a level 10. The same thing can happen with adults, right? You're sitting there, you don't feel like doing anything because maybe you're depressed about the stack of work that you've been looking at, and suddenly a state change happens where something new is introduced, a show comes on that you're interested in, or somebody calls you haven't talked to in a long time. They have something exciting to share with you. Now your energy levels have suddenly shot up to a new level. You're not locked into these low levels of energy. You're not stuck there. You can immediately go from a low to a high by changing your focus. But a lot of people don't believe that's possible. So it's important that you change your beliefs about low energy and just realize that there are going to be triggers that you can activate that take you from a low to a high. And this is especially important for entrepreneurs because it's not always going to be convenient to have a high level of energy. You might feel really, really crappy and suddenly you need to be on because there's an opportunity to make money or to do something that's going to create success in your business. And you need to be able to activate high energy in that moment, even though you may not feel like it. So you have to be able to challenge your beliefs about your current levels of low energy. But you also need to challenge your beliefs about lack of sleep. And you may not want to hear this, but the truth of the matter is that most successful entrepreneurs, especially people early on, early phases, year 1, year 2, year 3, there are going to be times where you have to sacrifice sleep. Again, you might not want to hear this, but for the most part, this is true. There are going to be times where you're going to be putting in 17, 18, 19-hour days, 20-hour, maybe there's days where you don't sleep at all, and you have these tapes playing in your mind saying, oh my God, you shouldn't be doing this. You need sleep. You're going to get sick. You need to be able to challenge your beliefs about lack of sleep because there are people who have gone days without sleep and they were perfectly fine because they made up their mind that this is something they needed to do. It is a state of mind. Now, I'm not here telling you that you can live a perfectly healthy, balanced life by sleeping 2 hours a night. That's not what I'm here to tell you. What I'm here to tell you is to challenge your belief about lack of sleep and not getting enough because there will be times, especially in the beginning phases of entrepreneurship, where you're going to have to push your limits and sleep less than you've been accustomed to in the past. And there is a part of your mind that is going to become fearful. And you cannot allow this fear to take you over. You need to take a position and a stance that says, I'm okay without sleep. It may feel uncomfortable. My eyes might get heavy and tired. My energy might feel low. But I'm going to persist through this because plenty of other people have done it and they did not get some kind of terminal disease by sleeping less. They just worked through that problem or they worked through that scenario or that pattern. And they got through to the end of it. Realize that lack of sleep is probably going to happen to you at some point in the earlier phases of business. And it may not feel great. And yeah, you may even get run down. And who knows, maybe you even get a little bit sick. But you'll recover. You'll use that time to get some extra sleep and get back on your feet. But don't allow the fear. And this is just more about fear than it is anything else. Don't allow these preconceived beliefs that you need 8 hours a night or else you're going to be really, really unhealthy. Don't let that control you. This is all about energy management, and more importantly, taking control of your time and your life. Now, you also need to start monitoring how certain foods or behaviors or business activities or thought patterns impact your energy. All of these things, they seem like a random collection of things, but they can all have a direct impact on your energy. If you have a huge plate of pasta at lunch, and then you feel really crappy for the next 2 hours, that you can barely do any work. You're doing 2 hours or 2 minutes of productive work in that next 2 hours. Then maybe you should skip the pasta and eat something a little healthier. Or maybe there's a certain business activity like, accounting, filling in spreadsheets that causes you to feel really, really low energy. You can begin to anticipate certain activities or behaviors, or when you get into this mindset of worrying about the numbers or the books, that causes your energy to go down. When you monitor how these different things impact your energy, then you can start becoming conscious, like I said earlier, that, look what's happening here. My energy is starting to dip. Where have I been focusing? Okay, time to do something about it. And that's what we're going to do right now. There's a couple of exercises that I want you to do today to begin taking control of your energy levels, to begin managing your energy. First, create a log. So going back to what I just said, create a log of different foods, events, thought patterns, tasks that seem to zap your energy, that seem to put you at a low, that make you feel kind of like, oh man, why did I get in business to begin with? I just want to go to bed right now. Start realizing and logging what it is that causes you to get to that level. Then figure out an antidote. What's the flip to it? What's your equivalent of being a little kid and your parent coming in when you're really tired or you've been given a chore or a task you didn't want to do and suddenly saying, hey, if you get this done, we can go to the amusement park. And now your energy level is at a 10 again. You have antidotes that you can begin to bring into your life. You just have to figure out what they are. What snaps you from a level 0 to a level 10, or maybe even more subtly from a level 3 to a 7, because all you need is a 7 right now. But figure out how to increase your energy when you need it so that you can use it as you need it. And then when your energy levels are low, and it's time for a recovery, you can take it. And when it's not time for recovery, you have strategies to get through it until it's a reasonable time for you to take a break and for you to relax. Use this now, become a master of your energy, and watch your business grow. The Online Entrepreneur Motivation Series, discussing ideas, strategies, and mindsets to help online entrepreneurs become more successful. And you know, just by looking at the title here, that if you do not deal with fear, that your level of success will always be capped. And that's what we want to do with today, is we want to discuss how to deal with, how to conquer, how to work through our fears so that they no longer stop us and we can reach whatever level of success we determine we want in our lives. But start by this. Start by realizing that the average person in our world, when we look around us, is fear-based. I mean, look right now at your neighborhood or your circle of friends or even in your family, and look at the moves and decisions and ideas that people carry around with them. Most people are fear-based. If you look at somebody that has a really crappy job and they've never done anything about it, they're fear-based. They're staying there because they're too afraid to do anything about it, because they're afraid of what might happen if they quit and go out on their own. Or if you look at somebody who lets people walk all over them because they're too afraid to confront those people and deal with the problem, and so they get stuck in this prison of effectively their own fears because they worry about what might happen if they actually take some corrective action to deal with the problem. And these are just two little examples, but this is stuff that plagues people in our everyday lives when we look around us. People are fear-based. And if you want to succeed as an entrepreneur, you must overcome this. You cannot be a fear-based individual. You cannot make decisions that are fear-based. And so how do you move yourself out of that trap? Well, it starts by becoming aware. Becoming aware of how your fears are holding you back. How certain fears are creeping into your life and stopping you from taking actions that you probably know you need to be doing to be successful, but you're not doing them because of these fears and because of something you're probably imagining is going to happen. Whether it will or not is yet to be determined because you haven't taken the action. But your fear of it happening is stopping you dead in your tracks, and it's perpetuating a cycle of failure because you keep doing the same things over and over again that are producing these results that you don't want. So becoming aware of how your fears are holding you back is very, very important, but it also requires that you become aware of what fears exist in general. What kind of fears do you have? Are you fearful of confronting somebody? Are you fearful of making a presentation? Are you fearful of putting your work out for scrutinization or criticism because you just don't think you can handle other people's negative opinions of you? There is probably a laundry list of things that every entrepreneur has to deal with when it comes to fears that hold them back, but until they look these fears in the face and start understanding the implications of them, of what it's actually costing them to invest in these fears, they never do anything about it. So start thinking about that. What kind of fears do you have? And more importantly, how are those fears actually blocking you? And you can do this by studying your fear. And that starts with decomposing your fear into the root cause or the origin, or ultimately understand why you have the fear to begin with, at least to the best of your ability. So let's use an example of public speaking, which is a common one. Most people are actually afraid to speak in front of a group of people, but they just leave it at that. They just say, well, I'm afraid of public speaking, and they just don't do it. But let's actually assume you're a successful or aspiring to be a successful entrepreneur, and you want to deal with this problem once and for all. So you look at the problem. Okay, the problem is I'm afraid of speaking. Well, why? Well, because I might get up there and forget my lines, and it's going to look really, really bad. I'm going to look like a fool. Well, have you looked like a fool before in your life? Or have you dealt with problems where you kind of put yourself in a situation where you couldn't deliver? Were you able to recover from that? And if you really are honest with yourself, you know the answer is yes. You've screwed up in the past and you've recovered from it. Maybe your ego was a little bruised, but time heals all wounds and you dealt with it. So the ultimate fear in this situation is screwing up and looking a little foolish for a while. Well, hey, you're an entrepreneur. You better be able to handle looking like a fool once in a while because you're going to make mistakes. That's just the nature of the game, not just in entrepreneurship, but in life. However, if you don't actually do this exercise, if you just say, I'm fearful of public speaking and don't take it a step further, then you'll never do the action of public speaking. You just won't because you don't understand the root cause of the fear. But if you take a little further here and rationalize a bit, it makes more sense. Then you can actually go to step 2 here, which is studying your fear responses. So you're about to deliver the speech and you say to yourself, man, I'm really scared. Well, what does that actually mean? What physically happens to you? Does it mean that your chest is pounding, your hands are shaking, you're sweating a little bit? I don't know. Everybody reacts differently with different physical sensations when they're fearful. But actually studying it and realizing what the fear response manifests like in your body can help you deal with it. And that actually can help you anticipate it in the future. If you're feeling fearful now, and these are the symptoms that you're seeing, the next time you feel fearful, you actually realize, hey, I'm getting the same symptoms. This is just fear. Did I deal with it last time? Yes, I did. That's a basis for success. I can do it again. And it's really interesting. I've heard Tony Robbins tell the story of Bruce Springsteen talking about how excited he gets before a concert, and he explains the physical sensations of his chest being tight and all these different things going on in his body. And to him, that signifies to his brain that he's ready. And then another artist who had the exact same sensations, whose career actually faltered for a while because she thought she was dealing with stage fright, experienced the exact same things. Bruce Springsteen learned to anticipate those physical sensations as excitement, where this other person was anticipating or interpreting it as fear-based. And it's neither here nor there. It's the fact that one person decided to work through it and go with it and make the best of it, and the other person let it stop them. So the final thing here is recall situations where your fear was exaggerated, which is almost always, right? Going back to the fear of public speaking, you may feel the physical sensations like you're about to die because you're just so scared to speak. Is that a reasonable state of physical being to be in just because you're delivering a speech? And the answer is no. It's not really reasonable for you to feel that much terror just because you're getting up in front of a group of people to speak. They're not going to slay you or throw bows and arrows at you because you did a bad speech, yet your body feels as though your life is being threatened. So it's not really realistic. Yet our fear exaggerates how intense it really is for us. And that's why you want to study your fears. So anytime you have something that is fearful and that is actually blocking you from taking actions that are going to help you succeed, this is a process that you can go through to actually come to grips with what the fear really is all about. Next, you need to develop a hate of fear so that you can act in spite of it. And this quote is beautiful. It says that true courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to proceed in spite of it. Now, you might look around at some really successful entrepreneurs and you might think to yourself, wow, look at what they can handle. Look at the things they do. They're getting on TV and they're speaking to thousands of people. I could never do that. They have so much more natural courage and they have fewer fears than me. And that's just BS. It's not true. Those people have learned how to act in spite of their fears. Some of the most successful people are actually incredibly nervous. They hate getting up in front of crowds, but they do it anyways because they've conditioned themselves to have true courage, to act in spite of fear. So get out of this mindset that says, well, I'm fearful and they're not. Everybody's fearful. The people that you aspire to be like have just learned how to deal with it and move through those fears. And maybe the fears don't grip them as strongly as they used to because they've made a habit of working through it. And now you have to make the same habit as well in your life. So let's do that with the following exercises. First, make a list of anything that you are nervous, afraid, or fearful of. Make as long of a list as possible so that you can become consciously aware of all of your fears. Next, make another list of how these fears prevent you from getting what you want. This will actually make you angry, and it should, because you're building up this huge pile of fears, and they're stopping you from getting these things that you really want in your business, or maybe in your life as well. So that should make you really, really angry. So now you can make the third step here, which is a commitment to act in spite of these fears. You're going to do it. You're going to feel the fear and do it anyway, which is the title of a book, but it's beautiful advice. So you're not going to worry about getting rid of these sensations of anxiety and things that you feel when you're fearful. You're just going to realize that they're going to happen, but I'm still going to do this anyways. And once you make a habit of doing that, you have conquered your fear, you've managed your fear, and now you can begin to take all kinds of actions to grow your business and become that much more successful as an entrepreneur. The Online Entrepreneur Motivation Series, discussing ideas, strategies, and mindsets to help online entrepreneurs become more successful. And if you really want success, If you want to do something that's going to elevate you to the next level and do something that the average person just isn't doing, today's topic is key, and that is your ability to focus your mind. This day and age, today's world, there have never been more distractions for human beings to deal with. We are constantly being bombarded with instant messages, text messages, checking our email, phones ringing, you name it. Our focus and our attention is being diverted in 100 different directions at all times. And this has a huge negative impact, especially on entrepreneurs who need to be extremely productive and extremely efficient if they want to build a successful business. So if you want to build a successful business, and if that's your goal and that's what you're doing right now, then you already know instinctively that focus is going to be one of your absolute most critical pieces to that success puzzle. And you have to start by realizing what focus is. Focus is actually a mental faculty. And when I say mental faculty, I mean it's one of the ways in which our minds think. It is the will of our mind to have sustained concentration, to think about and focus on and take action on one thing for an extended period of time so that we can build this momentum, this feeling good about a particular task. And I'm sure you've been in that flow state before where you forced yourself to do nothing else except this one task. It could be writing, it could be recording something, it could be manual labor. I don't know what it was, but you focused on it for a while, you started to develop some momentum, and before you knew it, you were heads down and really cranking out great material, whatever it was. That is the power of focus. The problem is, we rarely these days give ourselves a chance to build that momentum anymore. We might get 5 or 10 minutes into a task, and we allow the phone ring to stop us, or we allow the sound of a new email coming in to divert our attention to something new, and we never reap the rewards of this incredibly powerful momentum that we get when we focus. It's just like when you're outside on a sunny day and it's nice and warm and you can get a suntan, but at the same time, if somebody took a magnifying glass and took those same sun rays but focused them and harnessed them into a single beam of light on your skin, it would burn you, or it would burn a piece of paper, it would go up in flames. It's the exact same energy. It's like our mind is the exact same energy, but when we focus it on one thing, we can have a far more powerful effect. And that is the essence of what we're going for. To reach the pinnacle of success as an entrepreneur, you need to have laser-like focus on the things that you need to be doing to grow your business. And unless you're focusing on those, your attention's being diverted in a million different directions, you'll never make the progress that you need to make to reach the really big and lofty goals that you're likely setting already in your life. So realize that focus is actually a skill. It's a skill and a habit, right? If you work on your focus on a daily basis, you can get into the habit of being really good at focusing on things, and it can be deliberately strengthened. But unless you make the choice to deliberately strengthen it, you're never going to actually realize that benefit. So realize it's a skill, and then realize that you can do something about it. But you have to start by identifying things. Most importantly, identify what breaks or interrupts your focus as it stands today. Maybe you sat down this morning to read a couple of articles that were relevant to your business, and you couldn't even get through the first half of the article without being interrupted or distracted by something. Let's say a text message, one of the most popular interruptions that exists. You need to start identifying in your life where all of your interruptions exist and what breaks your focus. And you can start making a list of those things, but even just becoming consciously aware of how your focus is getting broken can give you the insights into dealing with that problem. Then, once you start understanding where these focus breaks are happening, now it's time for you to actually condition yourself to develop a rage or a hate or whatever you want to call it towards focus interruptions. You know the power of focus. You know that white hot heat that you can produce and create amazing results in a short period of time when you're allowed to focus. You need to develop a rage towards anything that causes you to interrupt your focus. And most of the time, it's probably going to be your own bad habits that are doing this. Sure, there are going to be people who interrupt you, and there's only so much of that you can handle. But anything that you can control, now you're going to develop a rage towards it. And you will simply not allow these other things, like an email message or a text message, to stop you. You figure out strategies to, turn the volume down or just flat out ignore it when you hear these signals coming in, and you stay in your mode of focus. But until you actually have a distaste or a rage toward the interruptions, they're very seductive. And you're going to be so tempted to check that text message or to check that email that they will continually break your focus unless you make a point of not letting it. And the only way you can really not let it at an effective level is when you get really, really damn mad at the thing. So let's talk about a couple of exercises you can do today that will help you increase your focus and get you into that level of momentum you need to be at to crank out all kinds of great results. First, practice focus. And this can be anything. It could be writing for 15 minutes, totally interrupted until your timer goes off. So get some kind of audible timer that makes a sound at the end of 15 minutes, but all you're going to do for this time frame is write. You're not going to check email. You're not even going to take your hand off the paper, or you're not going to stop typing in that entire 15 minutes. It could be something else like meditation. It could be focusing on a stopwatch for a minute at a time and not allowing your mind to wander. It can be anything really. Just develop the habit of making your mind focus on a single thing or a single action. Next, work in time blocks. So if you have something that you need to get done for your business, let's say you're producing some form of work for your customer, and this normally takes you 3 hours because you allow yourself to check email and check voicemail while you're going through it. Well, give yourself 30 minutes this time and see how much of this thing you can get done in that 30-minute block. You might shock yourself. You might realize that this activity that was taking you 3 hours previously really is a 40-minute activity when you focus on things, when you shut down your email and you shut down all other distractions and you leverage the actual momentum that you get when your mind is allowed to focus on the one thing. But make focus a huge priority in your life. Take the advantage that you have, this natural instinct, this natural skill that we all have as people, that when we focus on something, we get into this flow state, we get into this momentum that really we can't be stopped. And once we hit that, the levels of production will be amazing, and your success as an entrepreneur is practically guaranteed. The Online Entrepreneur Motivation Series, discussing ideas, strategies, and mindsets to help online entrepreneurs become more successful. Right now, we're going to talk about goals and knowing your goals. And before you roll your eyes or turn this off or run away screaming, don't worry. This is a short but important topic. And even if you've done the goal setting thing before and you're tired of hearing about it, I want to remind you of a few things that you may have forgotten, because this is an important topic, and the best entrepreneurs are very goal-oriented and meticulously study and enhance and focus on their goals on an ongoing basis. So let's discuss this quickly to make sure that you're not missing anything. Now, I'm going to start by talking about traditional goal setting and how overrated a lot of this stuff is, where if you go back to your school days, there's very likely a point in time where you learned about the SMART model of goal setting, where your goals should be specific and measurable, attainable and realistic and time-based, and that's great, and it has its place. But you're an online entrepreneur. You're running a business by the seat of your pants. Things are changing all the time. It's a very dynamic environment. Even setting a quote-unquote realistic goal is almost impossible these days because things change so often. And not to mention the fact that when you set goals that are very realistic, so let's take weight loss as an example. It's realistic to say, I'm going to lose 5 pounds this month, but it's not very inspiring. Whereas if you have some weight to lose and you say, well, I'm going to make it my best month ever and I'm going to shoot for 25 pounds down. Now that might be a little much depending on your weight, but you get the idea. If you go for something way more aggressive, something the average person would call quote unquote unrealistic, you actually have a sense of urgency. You have a sense of inspiration, a motivational fuel that doesn't exist otherwise if you create very, very basic and conservative and quote-unquote traditional goals. And so I want to talk about the fact that being unrealistic when it comes to your goal setting is actually a very good thing. Being unrealistic is, your goals are unrealistic when you start sharing them with other people, not entrepreneurs, but regular people, and you start sharing these goals with other people, and they look at you funny, and they look at you like you're crazy, like you're just out to lunch and you're totally detached from reality. That's actually a really good thing. If you start studying really successful entrepreneurs, they think like this all of the time. They're always pushing their own boundaries. They're setting goals that stretch them, and they're okay if they don't even hit those goals. It's more about the belief that you create in yourself when you set unrealistic goals. So that's what I want to really remind you about today, is really focus on what you can do to extend yourself by setting your goals in an unrealistic type of way. Now, Here's the thing. Goals often get missed. And I'm sure right now you're running a business. You've probably had different plans for your week, for your month, quarter, you name it. And you set a goal of maybe some kind of revenue target or sales figure that you wanted to hit, and you missed that goal. And you set a new goal the next month and you missed it again. And this just happens. But the thing is, when we miss goals, it's not a bad thing, especially when we're operating from this mode of unrealistic, aggressive, passionate goals. Because when you miss these goals that are huge, they always lead to other opportunities, and they're often really, really exciting opportunities. I can think of times in my own business where I set a huge goal, I failed miserably, but I got so far along that path that I found a new opportunity that I never would have known existed had I not set this goal. There are people whose entire life stories have unfolded that way because they were out on the edge doing something they really shouldn't have been doing, and it uncovered a whole new area of life for them. So be okay with missing goals. Be okay with failing a goal, so to speak, because you know that the goal is so big that even just pursuing it is going to advance you down the line. And that's how you become successful as an entrepreneur. Now, let's talk a little bit of strategy here when it comes to goals. Short-term versus long-term goals. You need to, at least in your mind, have an idea of a goal that you can shoot for in the long run. A good long-term goal could last anywhere from a 3-month to a 1-year window. It's something you're going to be really working at for a longer period of time. And your short-term goals are the goals that you focus on as stepping stones to your long-term goals. The long-term goals give you a perspective of where you want to go, and that's often changing as well based on today's environment and today's scenarios. But that long-term goal, even as it evolves, your short-term goals are what get you there. So if you have a goal to earn $1 million this year, then you can break that down to be roughly $83,000 or $85,000 a month. So your short-term goal, if you want to earn $1 million from now until 12 months out from now, then you know that on average, you're going to need to be earning $83,000 per month. So you can make your short-term goal $83,000 this coming month. And that makes it a lot easier to manage. It makes this whole idea of setting unrealistic goals come back down to earth a little bit. It makes you a little bit more rational, and other people can at least say, okay, he or she has a plan for this so-called unrealistic goal. Now, you may have been earning $5,000 a month up to now, and suddenly you want to jump to $83,000. Well, that's cool. Set that goal, but also realize that there's a very good chance you're going to miss that goal, as I mentioned on the previous bullet point. So you need to adapt your strategy, and maybe your short-term goal for the next month is, okay, well, 83 was the goal last month. Fell a little bit shy of that because we'd only been doing 5. Let's see if we can get halfway there. Let's make it 40 and see how close we can get. And this is sort of the adaptive nature that goals will work for you in your business. Now, another empowering and very powerful piece of goal setting is your ability to share your goals with as wide an audience as possible. Now, if you have a mastermind group, that's great. If you want to go onto Facebook and share some of your bigger goals with everybody in your personal world, your friends and colleagues and family, even better. Because once that level of accountability is on the line, you know instinctively, maybe you've already done this, right? Maybe you've put something out there in the past, and then you thought, oh man, now everybody knows that I'm attempting to do this thing. I better get it done. I'm going to look like an idiot. That pressure is really, really good for self-motivation. And it's also great if you just care about results more than anything else. So be prepared to push yourself to share your goals, but then also be prepared to fail those goals, even though everybody's watching, in exchange for the lesson that you're going to learn. So if you pick a great, big, huge, enormous goal, to earn some crazy absorbent amount of money, and you declare that goal publicly, and you fail in your attempt, hey, you're going to learn something along the way, because I guarantee you're going to be pushing yourself way harder with everybody watching than you would if you were trying to do this silently behind the curtains with no accountability whatsoever. So make that your mission. So let's talk about some exercises. First, writing down your goals. Now here, it doesn't really matter on the length or the term of your goals. Just get into the habit of writing them down. So maybe you want to start with writing down your goals for this week. Maybe there's a particular project you need to get finished, a certain number of calls you need to make if you're a salesperson. I don't know, but write those down and make a point of writing them down every single day. And then do daily tracking. This is the second half of the exercise. Go back to look at those goals that you've set. If they're week-based goals, then go back every morning and look at the actions that you've been taking on a daily basis that have been moving you towards them. Review your progress and then plan your next steps. If you actually take the feedback you got from the actions you took the previous day or the previous month or whatever type of goals you're doing here, then you can use that to accurately plan your next series of steps. But the daily tracking is absolutely key because it brings your conscious awareness down to a much more granular level. Whereas if you're only checking or tracking once a month, then you're going to lose control of your goals and you'll never ever reach them. Whereas if you do the daily tracking, you have a much greater chance at actually hitting these probably unrealistic goals that you've already set for yourself. So I hope this has been a great reminder for you of the type of goal setting you need to be doing as an online entrepreneur to be successful. Now make sure you get to work, and most importantly, make sure you do those exercises of writing down your goals and tracking them every single day. The Online Entrepreneur Motivation Series, discussing ideas, strategies, and mindsets to help online entrepreneurs become more successful. And the foundation of any successful entrepreneur, any successful business, is rooted in persistence. And so right now we're going to talk about cultivating persistence and how you can develop the skill and the habit of persistence so that nothing can stop you, and ultimately you will be able to develop a successful business. Now, persistence itself is really the only difference between success and failure. I mean, think about it. You can go back through the pages of history and look at all the entrepreneur ventures that have succeeded and failed over time. The people that were successful were not always successful. Every single story that you read is of somebody who went through all kinds of trials and tribulations, had one failure after another, and ultimately it was their persistence that led them to success. They simply refused to take no as an answer. There is the odd case where somebody hit on their very first business venture and did really, really well right out of the gate. But 99 times out of 100, the successful business is somebody who has persisted through a lot of trial and tribulation, and that's likely going to be the case for you as well. Even if you happen to get lucky and stumble upon a business that gets out of the gate really, really quick, at some point in the evolution of yourself as an entrepreneur and your business as an organization, you will meet with challenge, and it's your persistence that's going to carry you through. But are you developing your persistence? Are you aware of how important this skill is to your overall growth and success? Now, persistence is not a short-term pain that you have to fight through to get to the other side and have an easy life. Persistence is a foundation that you have to build in to the very fiber of your being so that you live and act from a place of total commitment to your goals. See, I think this is a mistake that a lot of new entrepreneurs get trapped into, and that's the idea that if I can just get through this, this first year or 2 years and grind it out and persist through, then things will get easier, and I won't have to really work as hard, and I won't have to struggle. And that is really clinging on to a false concept of how things really are. No matter what level of success you reach in your business, there will always be a degree of persistence required to keep this thing going. And this is true both in business and in life. So you have to realize and accept and embody the idea that persistence is something that you have to become. And if you realize that it's something that is ongoing for the rest of your life, it becomes easier to start working on it and practicing it today. So as you evolve and as you become a more persistent individual, later on down the road, as business gets easier, right, you discover new challenges or new opportunities for growth, a whole new level of persistence kicks in, and it's easy for you now. It doesn't mean there is less persistence, doesn't mean the work gets any easier. It's all still there, but you're coming from a different mindset. You're prepared to persist through all of the challenges that will inevitably pop up because you understand that they're coming and you're willing to persist. So remember, you will always be tested. No matter how successful you become, tests, challenges, problems will always be there. Your persistence will always carry you through. Now, you might be watching or listening to this right now and you're going through it. You've got problems, you're frustrated, your persistence is being tested, and you don't even know if you want to do this anymore. That's normal, and I want to offer you a couple of ideas that you can keep at the top of your mind to remind yourself when the times get tough, which they often do as entrepreneurs. Remember that you can always try again. I don't care what you've screwed up or who you've annoyed or whatever it may be. Entrepreneurship is more about who can hold on longer than it is about anything else. And you also have to remember that as long as you're alive and kicking and breathing and here, listening to me right now, then you can try again. You can take a new approach. If you've identified a driving force, a reason why you're doing what you're doing, and you know that you want to achieve this thing, whatever it is in your business, then persistence isn't even a conscious effort. It's who you are. And you've committed to this thing with all of your heart and soul. And so you will just continue to do what you do until you get the result that you want. So you have to know in your heart that your result is inevitable, even though all outside indications may be telling you otherwise. And all you have to do is hold on and keep trying new approaches and new ideas and new methods until you get the result. Time is not a factor. The time is however long it takes. And your job is to continually take action and try new things and try new strategies and learn and grow until you get what you want. You can do it, but do you have the persistence to get what you want? So let's talk about a couple of exercises that can help you strengthen your persistence. First, I want you to make a note of times where persistence has already paid off for you in the past. And you might have to go way back. If you're not a success-based individual, if you're not good at recognizing your own successes, you may have to go way back to when you first learned to walk, or something really, really simple like that, where you had to try a lot of times, but you never gave up because there was no other option. So you just kept trying and you kept doing it. And eventually, even though it may have taken a long time, you finally did make this thing happen. And it's probably happened many, many times, even this year, maybe this month or this week. Remind yourself, get in touch with that side of you that has been persistent, and remember all the rewards you receive from being persistent. And then you can be fully capable and comfortable of doing it more, of being persistent in all areas of life. Next, go out and find 3 role models throughout history. It doesn't matter who it is. People who have demonstrated persistence that inspired you. I guarantee if you're an online entrepreneur, the stuff that you're persisting through right now is a fraction of what other people have had to go through in their lives. There are people who have had to endure some of the most horrific experiences, the most difficult lives, and they made it through. Read about these people. Learn about their internal fortitude and what they had to do to get through to their end goal, and then put it back into perspective of what you're looking at right now, and I guarantee you'll have a new sense of energy. You'll realize that it really isn't all that bad, and you're going to give it another go. This is especially important when you feel like giving up. So have those role models handy. If you need more than 3, get more than 3. But just make sure you do this exercise to remind yourself that persistence is possible and it's absolutely fundamental if you want to succeed in business. The Online Entrepreneur Motivation Series, discussing ideas, strategies, and mindsets to help online entrepreneurs become more successful. Today we're going to be talking about productivity, being productive. One of the most important things you can do as an online entrepreneur. Are you productive? How would you rate your levels of productivity on a day-to-day basis? Do you really, really nail it every single day? Do some days find your productivity as at a peak level and then the next day you get nothing done? Do you struggle in this department? Today we want to quickly focus on this so you can put some strategies in place really, really quickly so that you're productive all of the time, not just some of the time. It's not going to be easy, but a few quick changes can drastically increase your productivity levels, which will, at the end of the day, make you more money and help you become more successful in business. Now, first realize this. Productivity itself creates happiness. Think about it in your life for a minute. Go back and think about times where you were really productive, not just at work. It could have been at home, cleaning out the garage, or doing yard work, or accomplishing something. When you were productive, at the end of that stint of production, when you looked at your work, you felt great about yourself. I mean, this is as simple as when you play with your kids and you build a snow fort. You were productive. You put all this stuff together, and at the end of it, you could look at your creation, and you felt good about that. Productivity at its root gives us life, makes us feel happy, gives us inspiration. And if we can tie our happiness back to our productivity, it makes it that much easier for us to put ourselves into situations where we will be productive on an ongoing basis. Now, the opposite is also true. If you're not productive, then you usually feel pretty miserable. If you have people in your life that are miserable and constantly bringing you down, take a look at their levels of productivity. And I bet you won't be surprised when you see that they're not as productive. They're stuck in a rut. They're stuck in what we're talking about right now, the enemy of productivity, which is procrastination. And what is procrastination? It's delaying something you know you need to do, and you're delaying it probably out of some form of fear. It could be just fear of the pain of doing it because you really don't like writing, you don't like confronting somebody, or it could be rooted in some other fear where you're really going to be putting yourself out there. You're not getting your work done, your book done because somebody else is going to now be in a position to judge your work. And so instead of doing this thing that you should be doing, that's going to make you productive and grow your life and business, you're doing something else like checking email that you rationalize in your mind is also an equally important task when it's nowhere near as important as this productive task that you should be doing right now. And your body, our bodies are naturally built this way. We feel horrible when we're not productive. And procrastination makes us feel horrible. So the only antidote is to turn it around and become productive. And that's the key. The key is real productivity comes from the necessity to deliver. If you are on the hook, if you have a deadline and there's no way out, you get a lot more productive than if there's a soft deadline or a floating deadline or no deadline at all. Think about any time you've set a project for yourself. If there was a deadline and there were people waiting on you, you got it done. If there was nobody waiting, you didn't get it done. Maybe you did, but you're an extraordinary individual. Chances are you did not get it done. So knowing this, you can start architecting your days and your agendas and your schedules so that you put yourself in a position on purpose where you have to deliver because there are people waiting, there are agendas or deadlines to be hit, and if you don't, there are consequences to pay. And that's not always easy to make that decision, but is the only way to guarantee productivity on a day-to-day basis. You might motivate yourself. You might watch a bunch of motivational videos or listen to really energetic music and get pumped up and increase your productivity in the short term. But without that intrinsic built-in necessity to deliver, I guarantee your productivity will dip unless you've absolutely conditioned yourself to do this on a daily basis. Most of us haven't, so we've got to create these instances or these forms that lock us in to delivering on our commitments. That's where productivity comes in. So let's talk about some exercises that will help you become more productive. There are two things you need to do. First, make a list of when your productivity peaked. Why did it peak? Think back. It's probably because you were locked in. You had some kind of agenda to deliver on. Somebody was expecting something of you, and you got it done. Then go back and make another list of when your productivity dipped. And why did it dip? Look at the things that cause you to procrastinate, cause you to become less productive. How did you feel when you were less productive? Remind yourself of that awful feeling of not getting things done. Then go ahead and lock yourself into more and more situations where you will be forced to be productive. Make it a daily habit. Maybe your new habit is every single day you commit to someone or a group of people that you will deliver something. And by virtue of doing that, the just very nature of doing that, you will be a more productive individual. This will help you habituate productivity into your life. Now you're making the goal, the productivity, more important than the procrastination, more important than the fears, and you will get results.